Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the Blessed One, the Worthy One, the Supremely Enlightened One. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Dear friends, I'm happy that you are reading the Samyutta Nikaya in these days, learning the beautiful sutta. So, you will find in Samyutta Nikaya this Bojjhanga Samyutta that Supreme Buddha has mentioned that you can practice Bodhyanga or 7 factors of enlightenment with the different meditations. In one of the sutras, Supreme Buddha mentioned we can practice with the loving kindness meditation. As we practice loving kindness meditation, so developing that loving kindness meditation up toward developing 7 factors of enlightenment. Some other sutras, Supreme Buddha gave the different practices. Even you can practice when you are practicing impermanent meditation. So this is really fascinating. So today, 7 factors of enlightenment, we will going to learn Pariyāyasutta, Satta Bojjhanga, we will be finishing. And then we will move toward Eightfold Path, the final practice to attain enlightenment. In this Pariyāyasutta, you will find that in that time of period, different monks from the different sectors, like from the ascetic families or for the Nigantas, Chalyaka. So all that time of period, the different sadhus or the monks were, for them, it was very easier to go and talk, have conversation with them. So it has mentioned here. And one time, the bhikkhus, what they did, they went for the alms round, but it was very early, it wasn't time to go there. So they thought, let me go to the different monastery. So the closed by, nearby there was one of the another monastery, and this bhikkhu went there. After cordial talk with each other sadhus or Abhajit, what is the English word for that?
Ascetic, can we use
yes,
ascetic?
Yes. They started to tell, it always happens whenever you go and visit someone, they try to explain who they are, and how their teaching is related with your teaching. Means you go and meet with anyone, you talk with Christian people, and they will explain, oh, you are Buddhist, or good. We have a couple of things similar, You go to and talk with the Muslims, they will say about, yes, the peace in that. And then you will talk to Hindus, and they will say, oh, our karma, the cycle of karma is similar. So these conversations is still happening, like in this world also. It's continuing. So whenever you meet, like when we talk with someone, we try to praise ourselves also, So it depends on how much they know about their religion and how much it is changing them, transforming them, how much devotion they put in their religion. And in that enthusiasm, they talk about their religion. Okay, I am doing this, it's beautiful. You should try, something. And when that happens, they try to, and if they know that you are Buddhist, and they will say, okay, in the Buddhism is something like this, and we also have a same kind of thing, and this is like they try to tell, okay, it is more better than that, and it's happened all the time. So in the Buddha's time, it was not something else. It wasn't different, and they also had only one thing was there, that Supreme Buddha's words or his teaching was so much influenced in others, that so they also chose these words from Buddhism. Like today, if you talk with any Jain person, and they will also relate that Eightfold Path is part of their religion, then or different the reason how the karma is affecting, or how this rebirth happens, how the suffering ends. So the most of these things they have took from the Buddhism, and they are placing that we know these things. It was our teaching in that way. If you go to India, if you come to India and talk, you will see that will happen. So in Buddha's time, people were taking, these ascetics were taking words from the Buddha, and they were teaching in the same way. Okay. But the difference was that they did not have, they haven't understand or realized it completely. And because of it, they cannot explain after certain phrase, after a certain phrase. So that happens. This monk, he visited to the another monastery, and this monks was started to talk about that samano also Gautamu Savakhanang evam dhammang deseti. Dear friend, the Samana Gautama, the Gautama, Supreme Buddha, teaches about this. Ektatumi bhikkave panchani varane pahaya chetaso upakileso panyaya dubbalikarane satta bhujjange yathabhuta bhavedhati. Dear friends, the Supreme Buddha teaches about how to overcome or get rid of the 5 hindrances, and then practice 7 factors of enlightenment. And in the same way, Mayam Bhikkhu also, and I am also, dear friend, do the same thing. I also teaches my people about that after getting rid of the 5 hindrances, or to get rid of or destroy these hindrances, which thinner your wisdom in those 5 hindrances, to practice 7 factors of enlightenment. So there is no difference in between your teaching or Supreme Buddha's teaching and mine. In that way, we are practicing the same religion. We are practicing the same Dhamma. Nothing is different. So the bhikkhus on that time, they did not reply much. They did not accept their words. Neither they showed any enthusiasm in their words. They did not accept or oppose those words. And Bhagavato Santike Edasya Bhasidasya Atta Ajanisanti. I will talk with the Supreme Buddha, and they will say. So after they left the monastery and went for alms round, after finishing that, when they went visited back to the monastery, these monks had conversation with Supreme Buddha, and they explained to the Supreme Buddha that one day, before we went for the alms round, we had this kind of conversation with this another ascetic. He mentioned about that the teaching what the Supreme Buddha gives and we are teaching, it is the same. There is no difference in between these 2 teachings. What is the Supreme Buddha is mentioning? So Supreme Buddha simply replies to him, Evam vadino bhikkhave anatittika paribhajaka evamansu vachaniya. When they say about this, that the teaching is same, in that time, you should ask them, friends, is there a method of exposition by means of which the 5 hindrances become 10 and the 7 factors of enlightenment becomes 14? being asked thus, these wanderers or these ascetics would not be able to reply, and further they would meet the vexation. And for what reason? So they will be silent in that way. There won't be any replies. So when you ask them and how these 5 hindrances transform from 5 to 10, and 7 bojjhanga becomes 14, in what matter? How this transform? They won't have any reply for you, you know, and they will stuck there. And what is it? And what is the reason? What is the reason for that? Supreme Buddha says, because they did not has realized it. It is not their subject to investigate and teach about it. Because when the Supreme Buddha appears in this world, under the Bodhi tree, when he defeated the Mara and realized, as a 7 James, these 7 factors of enlightenment appeared in that time. So these 7 factors of enlightenment has completely realized by Supreme Buddha. But for the other ascetics, for the other wanderers, it wasn't their domain. So they can only repeat, they can only repeat the words what the Buddha has mentioned. So they do not have their own understanding or investigation about it. So Supreme Buddha mentioned further that I do not see anyone in this world with its devas, Mara, and Brahma in the generation with the ascetics or Brahmins. It's devas and humans who could satisfy the mind with the answer to those questions, except the Tathagata or disciple of the Tathagata, or one who had heard it from them. So the Supreme Buddha mentioned, and about the Dhamma, the complete understanding, it only can be taught or preached by Supreme Buddha or his disciple or anyone who has heard from them. Supreme Buddha mentioned that I will explain how this changes, So simply, the Dhamma is without listening from Buddhism or without that, it is just words is there, So you will find a similarity in different practices than what the Buddhism is explains, but does not have the deeper meaning, does not have the proper understanding. So Supreme Buddha explained, Katamocha bhikkhave pariyayo yang pariyaya agama pancha nivarana dasahuti. And what bhikkhus is the method of exposition by means of which the 5 hindrances becomes 10. In what way, in what you practice, that these 5 hindrances become 10. So Supreme Buddha explained in the 2 different ways, that internal one and external one, in that about the kama chanda. So kama chanda, it means sensual desire. So the internal one and external one, once you divide that. So for understanding how the sensual desire is developed from inside and sensual desire developed from outside, for us who's very new in the practices, for us it is very hard to separate them, But if you are practicing Dhamma for a long time and you practice the impermanent meditation, you practice breathing meditation, and you isolate these 2 things, you will be able, because of the outside thought, because of the outside something, this sensual desire has appeared. And sometimes you will find that because of inside what the thought process was happening, so the internal sensual desire has appeared. So moved by outside or developed from within, these 2 things can be developed. So the method is there, So person can change, person can practice in that 2 ways. So even in the isolation, For the people, they think if I separate it from all the society, this thing won't bother. It cannot happen because internal desires still exist even if you are cut off from the society. The Supreme Buddha is mentioning there. So this kama chanda, sensual desire, can be found, uh, from the internal and external. You can see in the both ways. So this kama chanda becomes, is one kama chanda can be seen in the two ways. So by looking at internal and external, tadamina petam pariyāyana dvayam hoti. In that way, it transforms or it becomes into two. Yadipi bhikkhave ajjattam vyapado tadapi nivarana. So, what is the internal hatred or internal hindrance of ill will and external hindrance of ill will properly seen can become two. Means for us, the ill will hindrances or the vyapada, it is a one word, but when it is exposed, when it is properly practiced, or when it is properly seen, it can be transformed into. For us, it is very hard to identify that, like how the ill will arrive, in our life, So most of time, ill will need something from outside, like someone's bad word or someone's thinking or remembering something. So when we expose with that, automatically our ill will starts, But some of the time, even you haven't seen that person, nothing, but you develop from within, just remembering or thinking. So you do not need from outside source on that time. When outside source is there, it has becomes the external ill will. But when you have that thought process from inside, it becomes internal. In that manner, it transforms in two different things. So both are ill will, both are the hatred that would we feel. It's never, it's obstacles for. It's when you are very angry and you sit down for practicing meditation. It's very hard to do that because our mind always run toward that. When you are feeling sensual desire, always run for that. It is very hard on that time to stop it, and that's why it becomes obstacle. That's why it's hindrance. So Supreme Buddha has mentioned that in that way it becomes transformed into. Same thing Supreme Buddha is explained for others also. Whatever the sloth there is, a hindrance. Whatever the torpor, so the sleepiness, drowsiness is there. So it can be, some of the time, our entire body, it's tired, we feel in that way. Some of the time, our just mind does not want to engage in something. So these two things are in the same way. Means we are feeling lazy, it's not because of sometimes because of our body's behavior that way. It is our mind that is very tired and then we want to sleep. So even we have taken the rest, our body is well rested, but if our mind is not, so it changes in two different aspects. It can be the sleepiness means after eating, what happened? Our body felt tired, the sleepiness, drowsiness comes on our body. But some of the time, we are totally fine, but our mind is very tired in that way. So it becomes that. So internal and external sleepiness, drowsiness, the thinamita is also there. So we have to look that also. So then Supreme Buddha mentioned, whatever the restlessness is there, it is hindrance. And whatever the remorse is there, it is also hindrance. So about our actions, about our behavior, how we deal those things. So Uddacca and Kukkucca, the restlessness and remorse is there. So restlessness is that uncertain, unsettling state of mind in that, and remorse is that our worrying about our actions, that how this is happening. So in that also it is as two parts has become collaborate once. For us, looking at it in one simple way, we can type them. But for others, it is very hard to do that. So that's why the two words restlessness and remorse is together becomes hindrances. But for practicing, when it's exposed properly, when it is looked at, so you can see in these two separate things in that way. So as our practice goes continuous, as we go deeper and deeper in the meditation or deeper and deeper in the practice of Dhamma, these two things we can separate it. So we can identify, oh, this is the one caused me of that, so I will practice to get rid of that. And some of the time it happens. Restlessness is there, and then we are thinking about remorse, what we have done, how is that happened, the mental one or physical one. Those we think. So once we are practiced properly, then we can treat, we can deal that one by one there. So then there is a Supreme Buddha says, Vichikicha. Vichikicha is also can be seen in the both side, from the external Vichikicha and the internal Vichikicha. So internal and external Vichikicha, that how we see the world and how the Dhamma is explaining about it, how we see this world and how the Dhamma explains about it. So from the worldly things, the doubt can appear, but for our own cause, our own life, the doubts can come regarding the Dhamma. So we have to see the both ways. Some of the time when we see the Dhamma, we just see Dhamma from outside world. We do not relate it direct to ourselves. So the doubts can be there too. That's why that where I will be, who am I, how I will be like this will we explain, and how this other world is also, how they are going to be, how they are transforming. These two things is there. So doubts are there to see in the both time. So the doubt is the vichikicha is the hindrances, but it can become for the internal one and external one. Supreme Buddha explained when it is exposed, when it's looked at, when it's practiced, in proper way, in that time, these 5 nivaras becomes 10. So if someone masters about these 10 hindrances to identify, for them it will be more easier to get rid of 5 hindrances. It's like, see, if we know the proper cause, the particular thing about this thing, then we can treat that very easily. And that's why Supreme Buddha explained that no other ascetics, no other wanderers can explain about this without knowing from Supreme Buddha. Because for most of time, the external part and internal, by religion, it has been combined together. So many words you will see in the majority of time, whatever in the world, it is same inside also. Because we are connected together in that way. Buddha explained, even that connection, we are separated in that. So if we once understand, so we can practice Dhamma in proper way. And that's why it can only be explained by Buddha and after his disciples or whoever has learned from him. No one else can. Then Supreme Buddha mentioned in the same way, Katamocha bhikkave pariyāyang pariyāyang āgama satta bojjhanga chatuddasam hoti. And in what manner or what exposition or what practices in a way that these 7 bojjhangas become 14. How they transform into the 1 to 7 to 14. So the Buddha explained one by one, same way as internal and external Dhamma can be practiced. Yadapi bhikkhave ajjatam dhammesu sati tadapi sati sambojjhanga bahiddha dhammesu sati tadapi sati sambojjhanga. When you have the internal mindfulness and external mindfulness, like when you concentrate on your internal thing or the outside world also, like when you practice internally, what it called impermanent meditation for here, then you do that. When you relate that things from the outside world, like a Navasivatika, we talk. So that person is relating everything, what is happening to the body, my body is also subject of that. So this outside world is impermanent when we are looking at or the transforming how it is happening. We relate to internal also in that way. So the Bahita means external one, the concentrate or mindfulness when we concentrate on outside world, that is also becomes Sati Sampurna. And for the same thing, when we practice mindfulness from the internal one, the concentration is in developing mindfulness is important. Which one is the mindfulness that we are is depend on that. So it becomes two. One is internal mindfulness and one becomes external mindfulness. So the both mindfulness are same to be practiced. So how you will see the Dhamma, like mindfulness is there. Okay, whatever we do, we develop the mindfulness. Like if you are doing the loving kindness meditation, if you doing the impermanent meditation, or if you're doing the marnanusati, the looking at the death. So all that time, what we are doing, we are practicing within when we are giving to someone else. But when we are concentrating from the outside source, this one was internal one. Okay, but when we are relating the mindfulness from outside source, like if someone has developed temper and immediately we feel that this person has developed, so the concentration might stay up there too. When the external things related, like if any kind of karma is giving result or any kind of mindfulness is there for someone else, and we relate that thing with Dhamma, so it becomes external one. So our full attention, our concentration on Dhamma, but because of outside source, so that has become external. So most of the time, means the Buddha gives similes. You may have seen in the several suttas, Buddha gave different similes to relate to this Supreme Buddha's discourse, Supreme Buddha's teaching. And why this is that? From the outside source, you can understand properly inside. So that outside source becomes the part of Dhamma. And that is all external mindfulness and internal mindfulness. Means some of the time we need motivation for the virya. It also happen. We need, so the motivation can come within us or outside also. Someone can motivate us, so the self-realization. Someone show you our bad things or something that we have done wrong. Sometimes we investigate by ourselves and we identify that. So what happened? Investigation is same there, but one is come from outside source, one is come from within. So that's in that way, it separates factors. So the 7 factors of enlightenment also has these 2 parts. One can be internal, one can be external. There is another meaning you can take it from there. Means from the mind, like a dhamme dhammanupasidhyarati. So it completely, totally happened with the mind, and one is happening with the body, the kaya kayanupasidhyarati. So Pasana is happening because of our mind, is really looking at through the mind, but what we are looking toward our body. But for Dhamme Dhammanupasani, looking at mind by mind. So That is the different. Or chitte chittanupassani, so chitte. So the mind also will look by mind. So that can become also internal and external too. So if you concentrated on body, that is also external. But when you concentrate it inside your mind, inner mind, then it is internal. You can separate it in that too also. But simply just go to bigger thing, that outside source beyond our body is become external mindfulness, and within our body or within our mind, what is happening, it's become internal. So that will be more easier to be mindful. Means whenever you relate Dhamma or the words from outside world, like in Sri Lanka, there are so many phrases, so many words that enforce the Dharma teaching, and that relates to the teaching of Supreme Buddha. And immediately when the people hear that, automatically they remember the Dhamma. Okay, so many practices what we do. Like simply you should say, if you're practicing the Buddha Puja, okay, if when you are practicing offering the puja, what you do, you bring these material things, you offer to the Supreme Buddha, and what you chant the qualities of Buddha. So the mindfulness is about what? Qualities of Buddha, but how you are doing? By the material thing. So that can be external. But when you sit down for meditation and you remember all the qualities one by one of Buddha, and you develop that, I am developing the Buddhanusati meditation. Where it happens? It happens internally. So the external source, you take the help from that, means immediately when you go to the monasteries, what you do? Whenever you see the monks, whenever you see the Buddha statue, you develop reverence toward it. And automatically you bow down, you show respect. And how that happens? Because of external source. So the mindfulness is there by external source. So the mindfulness is there too, in the same way as you concentrate by yourself. But just because of it is outside you see. Means you don't have to close your eyes to see the qualities of Supreme Buddha. Means some of the time you look at the Buddha statue in our monastery and you are mesmerized that all the worries, all the tension, everything has lit up. You become totally different person in that split of second, in that moment when you see the Buddha. So how that happened? Because of external source, you become mindful. So the Satisambhojjhanga has developed that. But sometimes you don't go to the monastery, or if you're not in monastery, and you sit down for meditation, and you recall the qualities of Supreme Buddha, and immediately it comes, yes, what I'm practicing, these are the qualities of Supreme Buddha. And you feel the same power surge in you. And that becomes internal one. Now it is clear? Okay. So there's two things Supreme Buddha explained. Mindfulness is there. That mindfulness, Satisambhojjhanga is the Satisambhojjhanga, the factor of enlightenment is there. But it can be developed by two different practices. So these things we have to expose the Pariyāya, we have give the different light to see that. And that can be explained by Supreme Buddha. And then Supreme Buddha mentioned further that when you think of Dhamma, so internally, when you think of Dhamma, practice, develops, then it becomes Dhamma Vicaya Sambhojjhanga. For the external things, if you see the Dhamma, that is also becomes Dhamma Vicaya Sambhojjhanga. So how internal and external one? Like this body is impermanent. Everything is changing. So it becomes internal one. Thinking of Dhamma. When you see the outside world, everything is changing. Nothing is our control. This world, the trees does not going to stay in the same way. The soil, every world is transforming. So the impermanent is outside also, impermanent inside also. So the Dhamma Vicaya, thinking of Dhamma, investigating in Dhamma. So it can be practiced in the both way, like the story that we learn for the Rajoharan, as outside is nothing in my control. I am wiping, I'm cleaning this cloth, but it is getting dirtier. In the same way, my body is not in my control. So the Bhante, what he did from the external Dhamma Vichay, what he investigated, internal Dhamma Vichay. And that is the difference. Like relating ourselves from the outside source to inside. Like Navasivatika is totally about it. You see that body is there lying down there, and after 2-3 days, it started to swell. After a couple of days, it has a puncture wounds, and everything is fluids are running out. And what the monk does, he relates, if this is the body, what I'm looking at, and it has this nature, and this is also my body, and this body is also has the same nature. From the external Dhamma Vichay, what he did, he related himself to internal. And in that manner, it has transformed too. Some of the time, we do not need this external one to practice the mindfulness of Dhamma Vichay or develop the Dhamma Vichay, thinking of Dhamma. But some of the time, we have to relate that. So when it is exposed, when it is practiced, you can isolate it in 2 ways. That's a good connection. Then Virya Sambojjhanga. Kaikang Viryang Tadapi Virya Sambojjhango. Yadipi Chetasikang Viryang Tadapi Virya Sambojjhango. Means when you strive by body, develop the energy by body, that becomes Virya Sambojjhanga. Like physically, if you determine yourself, like Supreme Buddha has did, when he was sitting under the Bodhi tree, and he made the vow that this body, blood may get dried up, all the bone or the skin or everything is dissolved. Something like that determination, that strength, it comes from body. So the Kaika and Virya, from the bodily effort, he practiced. For the internal, like Supreme Buddha has mentioned that when I develop the thought of hatred, if I'm walking, if the akusala, if this has come to me by walking with this, like the shattering of teeth and holding it strongly, by mind I do the effort and I get removed while walking. I did not take it to the different posture. I have developed the anger by walking, and I will go and sit down and practice meditation to get rid of it. Supreme Buddha said, did not. So that strength was mind. That energy is developed by Chetasik, by mind. So external effort, when you meant your body to help you to overcome or practice the Dhamma, but your mind is determined to do the same thing of Dhamma. So the Kaika Virya means when you take effort, when you develop energy by body, and when you develop energy by mind. So these two things are both our Virya Sambojjhanga. You get that, how much is. So we both have that thing. Time to time, we do. Sometimes we are feeling energetic by body, but our mind is not giving. So we take more extra strength by body. Let me do it. Stop it, everything. And we do. Sometimes our body is not helping us to practice Dhamma, but our mind is willing to. And that time, what the energy we took, okay, let the body rest in that way. But I will not stop by my mind. And that is the energy is developed by mind. So these two things is there, but most of the time we develop two together. Then it goes for Sati Piti Sambojjhanga. So Savitakka Savichara Piti Tadapi Piti Sambojjhanga. Avitakka Avichara Piti Iti Tadapi Sambojjhanga. Savitakka Savichara, it means for the first jhana, like with the thinking process, as a Savitatta means taking one words like a loving kindness. May all beings live in peace, live happily. As you repeat continuously, it's wrong, and automatically that happiness arises in you. So because of thinking, this has come there. Like before the impermanent, you're saying, my eyes is impermanent, my ear is impermanent. So impermanent. So that one is there. So because of thoughts or because of thinking of the particular things, the happiness arises. That is called savitakkan savichara. Sometimes avitakkan avichara, without thinking. After there is just a notion of it that yes, this everything is impermanent. You do not have to practice or force by words to feel that way. So that realization or just the awareness of impermanence at the time, it's not because of words, it's not because of what you're repeating. So that becomes avitakka avichara. So that time there is no vitarka and vichara. So because of thought and examinations, the rapture arises, and without thought and examination, the rapture arises. So we can relate that things. It happens with us time to time, and then we get confused how this happens. So first jhana is there always that, but after first jhana, when this automatically there is no vitarka vichara, but the same amount of happiness is there, that becomes piti sambojjhanga. So the internal, for the savitakka, with the thoughts and thinking, the mind you develop rapture, that, and without thoughts and without investigation, that becomes the rapture. So these two raptures can be found. Then yadipi bhikkave kai pasatti tadapi pasatti sambojjhanga. So the bodily tranquility, and yadapi chitta pasatti tadapi pasatti sambojjhanga, the mind, the mental rapture. So physically everything, every component has opened. You feel the lightweighted. As we are practicing meditation, we all deal with that. What? After a couple of minutes, our body started to ache. The knee pain, back pain. Our neck is also hurting. This all it happened to everyone. But as you practice more and more, you get, and you deal with that slowly, that time of period increase. So, and one time it comes that you are so deep in the meditation, you forget or everything. Your body becomes like an air, like a pea, like a feather. It becomes like that. So that tranquility happens because of the body. Toward the body, you have become that. So it becomes you don't have the knee pain anymore. Nothing. Even after you finish your meditation, your body is relaxed. So that tranquility is called the kaik. Mind one is when the body is not there, but you are feeling that tranquility. That one. So the bodily tranquility is there, and mental tranquility is also there. So the Supreme Buddha explained, usually we try to combine both. Like we are feeling happy, we are feeling relaxed, but we are not feeling relaxed by body. So how we say, I am not in that state yet. We do not isolate it two different ways. Like we do not investigate, okay, I am feeling the tranquility in mind. We don't see until we feel toward this body. So every practice is when we want to feel by body, Isn't that thing we do? So in the Dhamma also, the tranquility can come, that completely lightness can come only by mind also, or by body also. So we don't have to combine together. There will be, there are certain time of period when these both are combined and we feel complete bliss. Some of the time, our body is in very pain, but our mind is very relaxed after meditation. That is also this tranquility. That is also, but it is chetasika. It's mental tranquility is there, not physical one. So remember that. Then savitakko savicharo samadhi. Tadapi samadhi sambhojjanga. So the first jhana. This is the first jhana that is there. So second one is avitakka vicharo samadhi. After second jhanas, whatever kind of mindfulness or concentration is there, that one we see avitakka vichara. So the first jhana, up to first jhana, or the first samadhi, first jhana is with the savitakka savichara, and after second jhana to goes upward to nirodha samapatti. If we practice in that much, then it becomes avitakka vichara. So the samadhi is also divided. And some of the time we touch that line that we have the first jhanas, or we touch that line, but how we have heard that when the samadhi happens, there is nothing, no words, nothing, that happiness is there, something like that. So we try to go beyond that. We don't enjoy the first jhana. So with the savitakka savichara, with the thoughts and thinking, there can be the first jhana we can realize. And after that, second one. So we have to come to that state, then we can understand and realize. So the jhanas can be divided too.
So, Aminansha, did you also say when the vitakka vichara, it's more like it's towards the internal?
No.
So no, external, internal. How did you differentiate that?
It's not internal or external.
Oh, because
When
everything
samadhi,
will be.
Yes, samadhi is not internal, external. Samadhi.
Oh, okay, sir.
The pasadhi has that internal and external. The mental and physical tranquility you will feel. So the pasadhi means your body is completely lightweighted, and with the thought process, you develop the mindfulness. First jhana. So it will be savitakka savichara, that one. But because of the pasadhi is there, even pasadhi is there, tranquility of mind is there. With that mind, you practice savitakka savichara, the first jhana. So the tranquility can be of body and mind, but the meditative state, the jhanas, are not internal or external. Jhanas are jhanas with the thoughts and thinking or process and investigation, and that will be the first jhana. And rest of it,
they are more like again, it's within your mind also. So it's your mind and your mental objects.
Yes.
Okay, sir.
There is no jhanas. You cannot say that I have the bodily jhana.
Yes, sir. Exactly.
Jhana is only is mind. Means some of the time for the split of second, you may realize that. So it is there. Means when you are walking toward the jhanas, automatically your mind and your body has become tranquil. It has not like that. That is a process.
Yes, sir.
So
yes.
It can be differentiated with some people. Like some of the people may have for the longer time of this tranquility to attain the jhanas. For some of that, they don't have to realize that much longer to have that tranquility. Within a second, they can transform into the jhanas. After that, they cannot feel a tranquility in that moment because they are in the state of jhana. So the body is completely detached in that way, in that manner. They are aware of it, but does not affect. So it's there too. What is the samadhi? See, first thing happens when you have the mindfulness. Mindfulness, how you develop for internal and external way. Okay. You have with the Dhamma Vichaya, means this mindfulness proceeds little bit further by Dhamma Vichaya. What you do when you are concentrated, you think of Dhamma. So it can be from the outside one, it can be inside one. For the Dhamma, you do the effort, you develop energies. So that energy can be bodily energy or mental energy. From the outside source, where we are came only to this body. For the mindfulness, it can be outside world also and inside world too. For the Dhamma Vichaya, we can relate for the Dhamma from outside and inside also. But when it comes from the energy, it is a bodily and mental. It is not outside one. The energy is for the body and mind. Now we have come to only up to in this body. We are not taking something outside from outside. Then that Priti is developed in body and in mind also. Then the tranquility also we can feel by body and mind also. Then the concentration mind, up to that point, the body and mind was there. But the samadhi, how we attain the samadhi because of thinking process. But the samadhi is happening where? Only in mind, not in the body. How you acquire that samadhi? By the thoughts and without thoughts. That is the differentiates of the samadhi. So when with the thoughts there is a samadhi that called the first jhana. So it cannot be external or internal. Jhana is there on this one way. Just how you acquire that. Then when the thought process also subsides, when it is also finished, so it becomes avitakka. There is no thinking or thought process. It just has concentrated mind, and that becomes samadhi. But it becomes without help of thoughts and thinking. So the samadhi does not have a difference like bodily samadhi and mental samadhi. Samadhi is there, just the stages you see. For body and mind is completely dissolved when the tranquility is there. The differentiation, like you see, from first we look at from the outside world to this inside world. Later on, in this body also, we separate it from the body and mind. In samadhi, this has become finished. There is no differences of body and mind. It is only samadhi in mind, that with the thoughts and without thought. So the first jhana is with thought. After second, third, fourth jhana is without thought. So that is the mind. Okay. And then last one is called upekha. Upekha is also how ajattam and bahittam. In that moment, so the internal upekha and external upekha is there. So the upekha, like this upekha is with the help toward realization. Like now you have a concentrated mind, you are isolated, and now you are establishing ourselves. Now we are establishing ourselves on the path of Eightfold Path. Because that. So the upekha is there in a both, so the internal and external is there. This upekha, how it exactly happens, or how we can say the internal and external equanimity, we will talk it or we will discuss it more further when we are discussing of Eightfold Path. Because Eightfold Path has to realize by ourselves and by practice by ourselves. So outside world, like the 5 precepts or the precepts are there, the verbally things are there, they are combining with our body. So the external and the internal is there, and that the equality or what we come into the balance, and we go beyond that. In that kind of upekha is there. So how will that happen? After attending the realizing or practicing or discussing of Eightfold Path, we will see. Okay. So do you understand today's chapter? Little bit difficult or little bit to understand the process. As we progress in Dhamma, as we practice in Dhamma, slowly we can isolate this or differentiate these two things. It is not important to do forcefully. It is for this only to be aware. What the Buddha explained, when it is exposed, when it is looked upon, when we investigate it, then these two things can be separated. It is not by forcefully we have to do. Okay? So let me have the physical tranquility and mental tranquility. Not like that. Just say, I am having this tranquility. I'm not, yes, I'm just having the tranquility. That's enough. When you go a little bit further, and how you will feel, okay, I'm feeling tranquil in my mind, I'm feeling the body, that is extra source. Okay, you don't have to be forcefully doing that.